So, greetings, good afternoon. Thank you so much for being here today. I am so grateful to have you in this conversation. I'll go ahead and just briefly introduce myself. I'm Dr. Anderson, working at the College of Social Work. And so I really wanted to take the time to connect with an amazing leader today. And so that's kind of where you definitely come into the spectrum. So our conversation today is really catered around learning more about Hispanic Heritage Month and all the great contributions of individuals that, are represented by these particular groups. And so I thought it would only be fitting to, talk to you. You are amazing. Ever since I first saw you and heard from you, just your words were really so powerful. And so I just really was so overjoyed when you agreed to have a conversation with me today. So I would like to begin our conversation with giving a little bit of background on you. And I know this is just a smidget of all the greatness that you have going on, but if that's okay, I'll begin with that. Okay, so Dr. Julia Lopez Robertson is a professor in the Department of Teacher Education at the University of South Carolina. She holds a BS in Elementary Education from Northeastern University in Boston, Massachusetts, an MA in Bilingual Multicultural Education from the University of Arizona, and a PhD in Language, Reading, and Culture from the same institution. A formal bilingual early childhood educator, her research explores the intersections of language, race, ethnicity, and culture, particularly in relation to the education of English learners and their families. Her work also focuses on preparing teachers for diverse classrooms. Driven by a deep commitment to children, families, educators, and pre-service teachers, Dr. Lopez Robertson's scholarly pursuits center on enhancing understanding of bilingual and multilingual students and fostering equity in teacher education. She collaborates with public schools, universities, and communities to advocate for inclusive teaching practices that benefit all students with a special emphasis on English learners. Dr. Lopez Robertson is the author of Celebrating Our Cuentos, Choosing and Using Latinx Literature in Elementary Classrooms, and co-author of Re-envisioning Family Engagement and Literacy in Early Childhood Classrooms, Porque Así Ya Conocimos. Did I do that okay?
Yes, yes, that's good.
Yes. Okay. Well, thank you so much for being here. So I guess we could just start off with you, if you don't mind, just telling us a little bit more about you and what kind of has brought you here today and in the realm of all of the great things that you're doing in this moment.
Well, thank you. I appreciate you asking me. You have a great energy that I noticed the first time that we met too. So I'm really excited about this, and I'm hoping that this is just the beginning of things that we can do together at the university and the community around us. So I'm really excited.
Absolutely. Me too. Thank you so much. All right. Well, I kind of felt like, with a lot of interviews, they start with the really tough questions and all that type of stuff. But I thought it was really important to just start with you and just learning more about, what brings you joy. I know you do so many great things, and I can only imagine that sometimes it probably can feel overwhelming, especially with all the work that you do. So, especially if we look at all the things going on in our societies, from the hurricane to other issues and things like that. It's just always something. So I think it's great for us to kind of start off with just learning more about what brings you joy, what keeps
Mhm.
you going.
I think what brings me joy, that's such a big question, and there's so many different ways to answer it. I guess firstly, my children bring me joy, and watching them grow up as they're both young men now. One is a sophomore at Virginia Military Institute, and my oldest is a Marine. I guess he finished his job in the Marine, so I guess he's a veteran, which is wild to think that I have a my oldest is a veteran.
Yeah.
So the two of them and watching them grow in life and just becoming coming into who they are on their own, that brings me joy. And then work wise, I think I'm very blessed that my work is part of my passion. So I've been able to merge my like at the university, my teaching, my research, and my service is kind of all rolled into one, right? Which can make it complicated because we kind of have to separate them out. But the joy that I get from teaching pre-service teachers, I just taught my class this morning, and we were having discussions on graphic novels and how to use them in the classroom, and why to use them, and the purpose of them for me is that it gives all children access because many of them are wordless, so there's wordless parts to it. And just having discussions with them to have them figure out as future teachers, why would I or why wouldn't I use these things? So I guess with seeing how in young children, when they learn how to read, seeing the light bulb go off and just their eyes get this sudden like, wow. So that brings me joy in the same way that with my pre-service teachers, looking at them and seeing them think about things through a different lens that they haven't had to before. And really considering how can I teach my multilingual learners? How can I teach any of my children? Um, so that, and then I have a fantastic teacher partner who was my youngest child. She was his teacher when he was 4. He is now 19,
Mm,
and we've been together like for the past 7 years, consistent. And before that, it's been off and on. And it's very hard to find a research partner. She's a teacher, she's Costa Rican, Latina, just like myself. And we just connected from her being his teacher and then just finding common interest, to working with the Latino community and just all the joys that comes from teaching the children, my pre-service teachers, and the families. So
yeah.
it all kind of rolls into one.
That's amazing. And what a privilege to be able to have the connection with someone for that many years and for it to still be going and still be strong. And then it seems like it's very much professional in certain ways, but also personal. I mean, you could only, you can't help but to build like a strong bond, a personal bond with somebody for knowing them for that long.
Yes, exactly. And I think that that's what makes a big difference because we're to the point now that since we've been together for 7 years, so my class on Monday, we work with, for 1 hour of class, we work with her children. So my pre-service teachers teach her children reading and writing. So for that 1 hour, they're together and she and I are like roaming around, helping where we need to, or just, seeing the joy in my pre-service teachers teaching and watching them with their excitement and the children learning. And she and I can just look across the room and know that, what that unspoken, what that means. And just,
Mhm.
she is such I'm very reserved and she's just so exciting. Like everything is just exciting to her. So I feed off of that too. And it's been to the point that we have now presented nationally, I think, for 5 years. And the first time I invited her to present with me at a national conference, no, 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 that's not me. I'm just a teacher. I don't have anything. It's like, no, 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 we're gonna go and you're gonna see. So for her to see herself in a room full of teacher educators, and just to see her light up and then know that, yeah, I do have a lot to contribute, and just seeing that growth in her along the way. And myself too as a researcher, because I have such like you said, it's a close relationship built on trust
Yes.
for both of us.
Yes. Thank you for sharing that. You brought up something interesting too, where you were saying how you describe yourself as being more reserved and her as being more outgoing. And I think it's just important to take a second to think about that because, it's important for all of us to be able to be ourselves.
Mhm.
I just really think that that is so important.
Yes,
Especially, obviously as you get older, grow and mature, you become more comfortable in just like who you are as a person. So that
right.
definitely is like a part of it. But I know me always, just kind of wondering, like feeling unsure of myself. Like, am I doing it right? Am I, what I'm saying, performing well? But then it's like you get to a point where you like, no, I have to be able to be true to who I am.
Yes.
Yeah. And so
And
that's what
right,
I
and
thought.
true to my beliefs. And I mean, and that's what it is, that I can live my truth as she lives her truth. And we just, like I said, it just, and it's so bizarre because we met the strangest way that we met. I was in my office in ward law, and this is, oh my gosh, this is 15 years ago.
Wow.
And it was in the summer, and you know how in the summer we're in and out, we don't have to be
Hmm.
there. And I happened to be there that day, and my door open, and our administrative assistant's office was diagonally from mine. And my teacher was in there, and then my admin, the assistant says, she just yells, I have somebody here for you. And I'm like, yeah, just send her in, or yelling across the hall. So she comes in and tells me her story. She has been here from Costa Rica. She'd been trying to get her teaching credentials, but all these roadblocks were throwing up, and all these things were happening. And I just so happened, it's weird how life just happens. That morning to be talking to my son's principal as she was getting ready to begin the school year, she was missing a Spanish teacher. And I was like, it is like the heavens just woke,
Wow.
they sprinkled you in, and here you are. So I called right then and there. I called the principal. They made an appointment. We all met with her the following day, and she got the job. So just
Wow.
because she happened to be there, and I think she was there, I was there for a reason, because like I said, in the summer, we're not there that often. So
Mm-hmm.
I was there for a reason with her, and we just connected. And ever since then, just, being together, doing that. And then, like I said, for the past 7 years, more, officially, I guess more like I've convinced her she is my research partner. Like, you're a teacher, yes, but you're also my research partner.
Yes, I think, and that's amazing too, because it sort of helps to reimagine or redefine what research is and what it can be, the
Yes.
possibilities, Yeah, so I
Right,
think,
right. Yeah.
yeah, that's truly amazing. And another thing that's amazing about that story too is just like you took the time to be present and to listen to like what the need was. Because I mean, you could have easily just been busy or not in a rude way, but
Yeah.
we get so
Yeah.
caught up in our day to day that we just like, hey, how you doing? I'm good too. See you later. Bye bye. But like you took the time to actually
Mhm.
just be present and hear her needs. And so who's to say like if you didn't take that moment to understand like her background and everything, would those dots have been connected in that way, you know?
And
Yeah.
that's kind of freaky because I mean they wouldn't have because it just wouldn't have happened that way. I mean, yeah. And I think about that often. Is she was actually commenting last week where she was introducing me to someone at school who I just met them for the first time, and she gave them the background on our story, and they looked at her and they're like, "What? Like that is just so bizarre that it happened that
Yeah.
way." But that's how it did happen. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you for that. That's amazing. Well, if you don't mind, I just would love to ask the question about, as an educator and all the great things that you're doing, to help students and to help the field and just our world in general. I wonder for you, like as you were coming up, a young girl going to school and things like that, did you always have a passion to maybe be a teacher someday or always just felt like invigorated by education? Just wondering a little bit about like your background with like education and did you see yourself doing what you're doing now?
I did always see myself as a teacher, and I don't know why, because there are no teachers in my family on either side. Like, and I didn't know any teachers growing up other than my own teachers. So like it wasn't by example, it was just something that I kind of like, I want to be a teacher, and I was a teacher. It's funny because I never thought I was going to get a PhD, only because I didn't like I was the first in my family to go to college. I'm a first generation student. There was no one in my family who had gone beyond high school.
Yes.
Um, so it wasn't even something I was thinking about. So, but I went, I graduated high school, and it's funny because in my high school, as is probably the case of many Latino and children of color, at the time, and maybe now too, unfortunately, the scholarships weren't made available to us. And
Mhm.
I was, one of those students. I loved school, and I was the honor student, president of the honor society, all these things, but none of the scholarships were offered to me. They were all offered to the white students. So
Yeah.
they were able to go to college on scholarship. I wasn't. So I was on financial aid, work study, all those things.
Hmm.
But I finished school, and my first teaching job was at the school that I attended. So
Hmm.
my brother, sister, and I attended our local Catholic school, and that was the first school that I worked at. And I taught my first 2 years of teaching were at that school. And I chose that one in particular because I wanted to give back to our community. And I
Yeah.
think part of the Latino cultures is that the we just feel that we want to give back because there are all
Yes.
these people who have helped us who want to give back. So I
Yeah.
taught there for 2 years, and as part of my teaching, I had 25 first graders, and I was the math teacher, the science teacher, the reading teacher. I was the religion teacher. Poor children, I was the art teacher, the music teacher. I was all things, the PE teacher, right? Because they were with me literally all day from 8 until 2 every day, even at lunchtime. Like I was not separated from my children at all. Um, but there were 25 of them, and for the 25 of them, there were maybe four who were not Spanish speaking, but the school was, English only school. There was no bilingual education. And as I was teaching, I found myself noticing that the more I gave directions in Spanish and helped my children in Spanish, oh my gosh, it works. This is what it means to be a teacher, to
Hmm.
teach them, to be a bilingual teacher and teach them in Spanish to get what the content is.
Yeah.
So when I was in school, I applied to graduate school, and I wanted somewhere where I didn't know anyone, where I didn't know anything, and where it was going to be the complete opposite of everything in the world that I'd ever known. So I grew up
Mhm.
in Boston, Massachusetts, right? It was urban, it's a big city, and I went to school in Tucson, Arizona, the southwestern United States, the desert, where it is exactly what I wanted, the complete opposite.
Mhm.
And it was there that I got my master's degree there, but I was teaching during the day, and I was a student at night, and I was able to learn what is bilingual education because it wasn't part of my growing up. or
Okay.
part of my teaching or my undergraduate program. So I learned what it was to be a bilingual teacher, and I taught for a few years. And I had this thing where I kept on going back to university to take classes. And as a graduate student, you can only take classes, so many classes before you have to do something with them and declare a
Yeah.
major. So
Right.
I thought, well, I'm just going to I have a master's. The next thing is an ed specialist. I'll just apply for an ed specialist degree. And one of the professors that I had when I first got to the university, like 5 years prior, was my advisor. And she looked at me, she's like, "You're not getting an ed specialist, you're going to get a PhD." And she opens up this is how long ago it was. She opens up her file cabinet, takes out a piece of paper, write something on it, and just says, "Here, go turn this into Maria. This is your application. It's already signed. You're good." And I remember going home to my husband that night, how's your meeting? And I'm like, "Oh, it was fine. I'm going to get a PhD." And he's like, "What?" Never wanting, like, again, it had
Yeah.
never been a thing for me. My goal had always been to be a first or second grade teacher. And I was,
Mhm.
so I taught my whole PhD program. I was a teacher by day, student by night, and I was able to
Mhm.
put all the things, all the theory I learned, I put into play with my students, and they taught me. My children taught me what all
Mhm.
this theory meant to be put into play, and their families
Yeah.
too. So
Yeah.
that's how wanting to be a teacher, always been a teacher, never seen me go this far, but important to me as at this level to still be connected with the school and with classroom and with children and families. I don't
Yeah.
want to lose that. Like, sometimes we get up here in Ivory Tower and we're just
Mhm.
about researching and that's it, and we're separated. For me, it has to be, I have to remain true to my beliefs that I have to be active in the community, in the classrooms with my teachers and children and families.
You're right. Yes. Thank you so much for sharing that. That's one of the things I truly love about you too. We have so many things in common because I feel very similarly. I just always feel drawn to, give back and to, because I don't know how you feel about this, but it sounds like you feel similarly. Like I don't see myself as being different from the students in the chairs that I teach. I feel like they can do even greater things than I am doing, and that's what I hope for them.
Yes,
So
yes.
yeah,
Yeah,
that's what I dedicate myself to. And the fact that you're a first generation student, I am as well. And I, am familiar. Obviously, we have different journeys and struggles, but just what you spoke about in terms of the challenges that you go through. I mean, it's a whole thing. Like, getting into school is one thing, staying there
yes,
is another. And
yes,
as you mentioned, the scholarships and the cost, I mean, it's just like it's very much a burden, and it's really difficult. And I don't know if you can relate to this, but being a first generation student, you don't have like family or people who have been through what you're going through. So it's sort of for me, like even just the most basic of things of people asking questions like, "Hey, how's it going in school?" Like trying to answer that question truthfully to start off, but knowing that nobody understood. So then I had to
yes,
like
yes,
over time you switch it and you just say it's going fine. Or,
yes.
just
Right. Because and the thing is like we had no like models. We were
uh-huh.
it. We were
Yeah.
building, what is it that they say? You build the car as you're going along, whatever that expression is.
Yep.
We were doing that. And
Hmm.
I think that people who don't have the experiences don't know,
Yeah.
don't know what that is. But like there was no one to talk with. And then even my teachers, there was no, as a K-12 student, there were teachers everybody has their favorites, but none of my K-12s ever went out of their way to do anything to make sure that I made it to the next level. It
Mm-hmm.
was almost, I remember clear, like it was yesterday, my guidance counselor telling me, like, when you go into the office and they're supposed to help you, plan for the future, whatever.
Uh-huh.
She was telling all these other kids, with their scholarships and whatever. And I walk in and she says to me, I think you should apply to beauty school because Hispanics typically don't make it out of college anyway. So just go do this and get a job and be a hairdresser. And I remember looking at her and thinking in my head, like, I don't know who she thinks she's talking to, but I'm not.
Hmm.
And lucky for me, my parents, both of them were like, no, if you want to go to school, you go to school. And I remember my father saying, in the long run, when we're not here anymore, the only thing that we can leave you because we have no money, the only thing we can leave you is your education.
Hmm.
So if it wasn't for them supporting me, I don't know where I would have been. And then I think a lot of students are still dealing with that. The guidance counselors whose role it is supposed to be to support you just have a view of who you are through their eyes and don't believe that there's anything other than that one stereotypical view.
Mm.
And it's just like luckily I didn't fall for that. Um, and then my cousin she was, I think, like 3 years behind me in school. We talked one day a few years ago, and she had the same exact thing.
Mm,
And again, she didn't listen, and she's like a certified nurse. My other cousin's an engineer. So these people whose role it is to support us and help us move ahead in life have a view of what we are and what they think we are, and
mhm,
don't push us to do anything else, even though they can see that we have all the academics and all the push that we want these things, but they don't support that, which
mhm.
is very frustrating. And I know, sadly, that kids are still, there are some kids who still get that now.
Yes, thank you. And it's sort of like two parts that I wanted to like comment on with what you said, because I know the one part of it, and granted a big part falls on like educators and those individuals who are tasked or who take on the roles of helping the next generation of scholars to grow. They have a role, but then also, as talked about, partly the students have to be equipped to know that like you are going to face people who are not going to necessarily believe in your dreams in the same way as you, but not to let that deter you from doing what you feel you are meant to do. So I guess the first thing I want to ask you is in relation to the students, whether it be Hispanic students or students of color, just in general, those students who are encountering that as we speak, feeling defeated, feeling like, okay, maybe what everybody says about me is right. Maybe I am meant to be a statistic. Maybe I'm not going to do more than like anybody else in my family. Maybe I don't have what it takes. It's really, really difficult. What would you say to those students who are going through that right now?
But it's so hard because I think we always tend to believe the negative from
Yeah.
others and not see the positive. I would just say you've got to believe in yourself. That little burning desire you have inside, you have to be the one to keep it going and find people who are going to help you. And that's easier said than done, but just you have to keep on believing yourself, because if the thing is, if you don't believe in yourself, nobody else will. Because, and the thing is, I could have been a hairdresser and that'd have been fine. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that, but that wasn't my path. But you've
Mhm.
got to continue to believe that you are who you believe you are and that you can do so many things. And it doesn't matter what other people tell you. We always tell our kids, don't listen to those outside forces that tell you,
Yeah.
that you're bad. Keep on believing how good you are, that you have what it takes and that you will make it. And that it then sometimes we tell them we sell a fairy tale, it's gonna be fine. Well, like you've mentioned, we struggle. And that's
Mhm.
part of it. Like,
Yeah.
that's just part of it, but you have to stay strong. And I tell my boys, I'm like, my parents, your abuelitos, did not come to this country and suffer what they had to for us to just
Mhm.
sit here and do nothing.
Mhm.
And that goes back to the whole thing of giving back. We
Yeah.
all want to give back and help the community, rise up and continue to rise up. So believe in yourself and just don't listen to the people who are going to say negative things. They're always going to be there. Don't listen to them.
Misery loves company.
Yes.
Yes, as you sort of alluded to a little bit, saying, talking about like your family and they came so far and went through so many obstacles in order to sort of give you, a better life, right? And so you would kind of owe it to them in a sense, right? To make sure that you put it to good use. And so I wonder, just for you, Hispanic Heritage Month. And let me before you answer this question too, and I know it's not the greatest interview tactic to answer the question before your interview, but I just have to say this because for me, Hispanic Heritage Month, like I feel like wonderful people and great leaders need to be celebrated every day. So I understand that we're in Hispanic Heritage Month, and that's wonderful and it's a great thing, obviously. But at the same time, like it's not a situation for me where I'm like, yeah, at after October 15th, that's it. Now we
Right.
can go on to
Yep.
that's not what we're doing here. So,
Right.
so let
Right.
me first say that. But with that being said, during this wonderful month, Hispanic Heritage Month, and just the contributions of wonderful, individuals, what does that mean for you or to you? Anything you can share about that?
I think firstly, I agree with everything you just said. We're Latinos, 24/7, 365, and it should be celebrated all the time. And the schools, I don't know why there's like a month dedicated to every single one. And it kind of it sort of tells our students that, only during that time turn it on for this month for this culture, and then turn it off,
Yes.
and then it goes on for someone else, rather than seeing how we can incorporate this the entire year. It doesn't have to be just one single time. So I
Mhm.
totally agree with that. What was the question? What does it mean to me? Is that
Yeah.
what it was? Okay.
Yeah.
It means it's a chance to celebrate, all the greatness that comes from all the Latinos that have come before us, and that are, on the way up, and just for them to see. And it goes beyond just like we tend to, in for all cultures, right? We think of African American History Month, we talk about Oprah and LeBron. Yes, that's fantastic. We are more than just our athletes and our
Right.
actors. We are
Right.
scientists. Like you think of, for us, Sotomayor is a Supreme Court justice. I mean, who would have thought that she would have come from such humble beginnings to be where she is now? So going beyond the celebrity, and like looking for the scientists, the educators, because there's educators that have made a difference as well, and just making people aware. And not in the sense of giving a lecture saying all these things, but having the books available where kids can be interested. And when you're talking about science, including them,
Yeah.
including, female astronauts. I mean, Ochoa was the first female Latina astronaut. People don't know who she
Mhm.
was or who know who she is. So just making it a part of everything. And it's just a time to celebrate and show the pride and show the
Yes.
possibilities.
Yes. Yes. To celebrate the wonderful leaders like you. For sure. I wanted to briefly just ask if you could help individual, because I know there continues to be some, I guess, misinformation in terms of like terminology and not understanding like when to use particular terms, or
Mhm.
like if Latinx is okay, if Hispanic. Could you shed just a little bit of light on that for individuals who want to, be able to use language in a proper ways and don't want to be offensive to anybody? Like, where can they start with understanding that?
That is such a huge question. And there's so much difference in the community on how, like, who and what to say. But so Hispanic comes from like the census, and where the US government decided we've got these people aren't black, they're not white. We have to do something to put them in here. So they made the term Hispanic. And then Latino, there have been other Hispanic. Some people say Spanish, but it's not Spanish, because if you say Spanish, that means you're connected to Spain, and not all. And Spain, Spanish would argue that they're not Latino, they're European. So that's a
Yes.
whole different. Spanish is our language. You can say Spanish speaking, or you can say Hispanic, but then people have issues with the word Hispanic. So there's Hispanic, or my mother called herself Hispana, which is
Okay.
Hispana, or Hispano for the masculine. And she was from Colombia. My father was Cuban and identified as Latino, but most people who come from Spanish speaking countries identify by country first. I'm Cuban, I'm Colombian, I'm Dominican, I'm Costa Rican.
Okay.
So if we know what the background is, we say that. But just a general one, I would say I've always referred back to Latino because it seems a little more inclusive, but Latinx came up because the Spanish language is gendered, no matter which way you look at it.
Right.
Everything is either masculine or feminine. Like you have a pencil is el lápiz is feminine, is masculine, but a chair, la silla is feminine, right? So it's just a gender language. But the notion with Latinx was because it's a gender language, we're excluding many people. So put the X up there to be more inclusive. Then
Mhm.
there are those who most Spanish speaking Latino people don't side with Latinx because they say, it doesn't occur naturally in the language. It was a term made up by academics that really don't identify us.
Mhm.
The new one is Latine with an E at the end. So either pronounce Latin or Latine with an E, because the E is gender inclusive. That's everyone.
Okay.
And that's trying to get used. Like I use Latino because it's one that I've always used. So trying to get myself to maybe use Latin with the E at the end to be inclusive of all
Okay.
the differences within the community. But I think,
Yeah.
I don't know, I think Latino is more, I know Latino is more accepted than Latinx. Like there's been,
Okay.
the Pew Hispanic Center has come up with many studies on so much, like, and I don't want to say a number because I might get the number wrong, but the majority of the population does not like Latinx. It's
Okay.
more Latino or Latin, or if you know the country of origin, use that one instead.
Thank you. That was
It's a
great.
big issue.
Yes, I appreciate that. That was amazing. Thank you for that because it can be hard and you want to, be respectful and things like that.
Yes,
So I think it's important to really to work at it. And I
right.
love the fact that were vulnerable enough in saying that are still trying to like figure it out in certain ways at certain times, get used to certain things. And that just helps people to know like just keep trying. Don't give up. Don't get frustrated because you like, oh, it's
Right,
too many steps, too much to do, too much to
right,
learn. No, just
right. We're
Yeah.
all learning. We're all going through this together. There's nothing wrong. And I think too at our level now, when we're a doctor, whoever, it's like they think we know everything. Like, no, I'm still open to changing everything. Like we're
Yeah.
still open to learning. We're learners, lifelong learners.
Yes, yes, for sure. And that brings up something interesting too, because when we think about, faculty and staff and not gonna get into the weeds of I'm gonna stay on straight and narrow path in this conversation. But what I'm gonna say is that, it's important to know that like when we take on the role of becoming educators and, supporting students, right? It's important for us to be open to learning, to growing, to, just continuing to sort of reinvigorate the ways in which we connect with people from diverse, backgrounds and things like that. So I wonder if you have anything that you can say in terms of ways in which faculty and staff can better, accommodate and just increase belonging for,
Mm.
Latina students and students of color.
Mhm. I think, and it's kind of, it can be daunting because it's so much, but I think the big thing is to get to know these kids, right? Like our students, we have to get to know them on a personal level. And of course, I think it's easy for me to say I only have 18 in my class, and the other one I have 20. So that's a manageable number. But I know people who are teaching like lecture halls with hundreds and hundreds of students, it becomes more difficult. But
Yes.
trying to find ways to really know who they are, like, um, don't assume that because they have a Latino sounding last name that they're Mexican, right? Because not all Latinos are Mexican and not all Mexicans are Latinos. There are many, many different ones of us. So ask them. And I think especially when I think of advisements, I know some advisors have a crazy load too, but just trying to find something individual about each student.
Yeah.
Because that one thing, like, if I don't know, if they love to play soccer or, if they were big into I don't know, band when they were in high school, something that makes them feel, because you make a good point that the sense of belonging, we're such a huge university that we want everyone should find their people on our campus. And it could be
Yes.
different groups of people, but nobody should be out there by themselves because there's
Yes.
enough where they
Hmm.
can be, you can find connections with other people, but just, really go out of your way to know who these kids are and then link them up. If you know someone that you think might share an interest with them, link them up. Because I
Yeah.
think especially as freshmen when they come in, like there's so many kids on this campus that if they don't come in with kids that they knew from their high school,
Yeah.
they kind of feel lost, or they might not want to stay with those kids. It's like I'm
Hmm.
not in high school anymore, there's a whole world here for me. So just
Hmm.
getting to like really get to know them, ask one or two little questions, like I said, your interests, where you're from, something where they stand out and they're an individual, not just like one of the many thousands that we have.
Absolutely. And I know in the world of social work, we talk a lot about, building like a therapeutic rapport or alliance, with individuals. And so it's really for me, even when I'm teaching my classes, it's about going beyond the content because, I could quote unquote teach a great lesson, but if what I'm teaching does not hit home and sit with the students in like a intricate, way that they can really grab hold of, it's not really gonna do a lot of good. And so like it's no point of me, patting myself on the back for hey doing a great job when I'm not touching the students because that's what I'm there for. And so,
Exactly.
as you talk about building that relationship, that for me is really key. Like, yes, we want to make sure our students learn and we teach the content and all that type of stuff. But at the end of the day, these are like real people sitting in like
Yes.
seats.
Yes, they're people first. Right.
Yes,
And
yes.
they have to know that we care about them. I had one today in my class. She walked in, we had class at 8:30 this morning. She walks in and we're at the school and she walks in and she has her finger up. Look what happened to me over the weekend. She got engaged. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's so exciting. And she was so excited. And some of them knew because they were in the cohorts this last semester, but not all of them knew. So as part of the class, okay, here's what we're gonna do today. Oh, by the way, Kaylee has some great news to share. So she shared, and of course she's holding up her finger. I'm like, just get up and show them the ring. So I had her, I get up, just walk around and show her little hand to the whole
Yes.
class. I'm like, we have to celebrate these things because, like you said, they're people first, and that's big
Yes.
news. And
Yes.
even if it wasn't that, it could be, I got a new puppy or whatever they're celebrating. They have to know that we care and that we see
Yes.
them as people, not just professor or student, that there
Hmm.
is a relationship there.
For sure. And something that also came to mind when you were talking about just s- the campus being so big and sometimes classes being so big that it's easy to get lost. It kind of reminded me of like just always taking the time to know that like everybody is an individual person. And it sounds kind of cliche. It's like, of course, everybody's an individual person, but like allowing people to define themselves and who they are. Like for me, I don't, obviously get bent out of shape when people identify me as a Black woman, which I am, but also I identify as biracial because my father's Native American. And so it's sort of like something as small as me going to a doctor and already having a box checked of Black when like you
Yes,
didn't give me the opportunity to
yes.
say it for myself. It's like it's not the biggest deal, but it is a big deal because it's like
Mhm.
allow people to just define who they are for
Yes.
you. Like, just it only takes a second. It
Right.
only
We have
yeah.
to give them that. And that's a really good point. I mean, we just have to, right, rather than assume that we know who they are, let them tell us who they are. And I always
Hmm.
tell them too, like, I have them write something at the beginning of the semester, we look at it at the end of the semester, and it's always the same question. And they look back on it, and I'm like, then they look at it like, I wrote this, I'm like, yes. And that's to show you how you were this person on August 28th, and now like on December 4th, whatever our last day is, look back, you've grown so it's still you, but you've added something else to you. Like
Yes.
where identity is, it's constant, culture is it's dynamic, it's changing all the time.
Yes, yes. Thank you for that. Well, something I wanted to make sure I asked you before our time is up, which I'm very sad to even think about our time being up. But like you said, we're gonna continue to find ways to connect. Um, I really am very passionate about just innovative leadership. I'm really just trying to transform what leadership kind of means in general. Like I know for me, growing up, the people who were in leadership positions or had these titles and things like that were, in my experience, some of the like meanest and closed off people that I've ever encountered in my life. And so I said, leadership shouldn't be that way. That is not, I don't know exactly what a leader was, especially growing up. I was a kid, but I said to myself, I don't think it's that though. I think it's something loving. I think it's something
Mhm.
caring, something different, right? And so I wonder for you, what does being a leader mean for you, and how have you been able to be such a wonderful leader?
Oh God, thank you. um
Yes.
I think you make a great point. It has to be about love, and whenever we say that word, it's a four-letter word, like, what, you said love, like, it's not part of academia, that's something
Right.
separate, it's emotional. It's like, but it should be, because going back to what we were just saying, if our students don't trust us, and there's not a relationship that's built on love and trust, then we don't have anything. And why would they believe anything we tell them? So and that means the same thing, going up and being a leader, like letting the people who you serve, and I think that's how we're one of the things that are similar to us too, that we serve. We're not, we don't elevate ourselves on this, that we're the ones that know all things. We serve, letting them know, yes, while I may hold the title that I have, it's still a partnership between us, and we serve, with our goal to give back to our community. And love and trust have to be the foundations of those relationships, even with like our admins, or our custodians, anybody, treating them with love and respect, and
Yes.
always, greeting them, just letting them know that we're not just kind of saying that, we believe in that, but we're showing it through our actions. So
Hmm.
letting everyone see that they are valued, whatever position they're in, they are valued, they are respected, and that, we do love them.
Okay. For sure. Thank you. All right. Well, that kind of wraps up my questions that I kind of had and things I wanted to for sure talk about. But if you don't mind, I was wondering if you might be willing to share a little bit about, you were telling me the last time we talked about something that you do in your classes or with like your families and communities. I don't know the exact name of it, but you have these events like with the community where you engage with them and get like, how did that go? Did that go great?
Oh yes, that was, when was that, 2 weeks ago or last week? It just
I
seems
think it
like
was
time
2 weeks
is
ago.
just flying by. I think it was last week. So it's part of my family dynamics class. And in that class, one of my goals is I want my students, preparing to be teachers to not be afraid of families,
Hmm.
especially families who are different than them, and especially families who speak languages that you don't understand. Because, like I tell them, you're going to encounter these families no matter where you are. There will be a family who speaks Spanish or Russian or any language that you don't know. You have to, as a child's teacher, communicate with them. So trying to
Yeah.
build their, and it's beyond comfort, but just their confidence and
Right.
understanding the whole thing between relationships and and loving your families as well. So we host 3 events, and the first one was a couple of weeks ago. We went out, like in schools, we have this thing where we ask the families, they always come to us. We have like PTA meetings, SIC meetings, or we have whatever events at school, the book fair, they're always coming to us. Or, we reach out when we need money. We're having a bake sale, or there's a pizza party, send in money, or it's always asking them for things. Rarely does the school go out to the community. So
Hmm.
we went out to, there's a community behind the school where I am. It's a mobile home park, and a lot of our families live there. A lot of our Latino families live there.
Hmm.
So we went out there, I guess it was 2 weeks ago, and we had my students had prepared, games like parachute, bowling, tug of war. We played loteria. There was face painting. There were all different centers, and each of my students they paired up and they were in charge of those centers and they rotated. And
Yeah.
then we had tons of food that the families brought. So the students ate as well. And it's funny because, and I took pictures the whole time. So I have pictures from the beginning where it's just kind of my students kind of just standing with their arms folded, just looking and, shyly trying to get into things. And you can see in the pictures, and I showed them in class, it was 2 weeks ago because I showed them the pictures in class last week. And I said, what do you notice in the pictures? And they notice themselves. We're more comfortable and happier as the pictures progress because they were also playing parachute. They were playing the games, but they were being
Hmm.
the leaders. And they noticed how the older siblings were overprotective of their little ones because my students would talk to them and the sisters would say, they don't understand English. They don't understand English. And my students, they kept on like, it's okay, because I'll talk with them. So just
Right.
giving them again that confidence. And then a
Hmm.
lot of them talk with families at night, families who were learning English, and my students were learning Spanish, but they were able to connect and, make out whatever it was that they had to make out. So it was nice to see them with the confidence. And it's so nice to see them out of the classroom because here
Yes.
they were in an open field playing, and just the
Hmm.
joy in my students' faces and hearing them giggle and just laugh, and then trying the food. There was pizza, and then there was more like the mothers had brought corn and some kind of tacos and tamales, all these things, and encouraging them like, I tell you guys, you always eat pizza. Try some new food. Go eat some.
Yes.
So little things like that. So
Hmm.
it went very well. They were very happy, and the principal was happy, the new principal was happy, like the families kept on thanking us because it's our 5th year doing it. And we had a lot more families come this year. So it's the families that live in the area, but then other families drove in for the event. And just to have that event for school that was off campus, that was at the community, letting them see that it doesn't have to be anything big.
Yeah.
It's just us with some games and some food, and here we are playing, and the community felt like they were coming together. Our next one is at school in 2 weeks. So we do
Okay.
that community, and then we go back to the school. So for them to see how, for the families too, we do one there, and then you come over to school. So
Right.
we start with us going to you, and then, you come to us.
Yeah, I love that that reciprocity because it really sort of makes the relationship even, deeper and
Yes.
just stronger.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. And then for
Uh-huh.
my students, I bring in the walls came down, so to say, because they weren't, and I had told them before, like, there'll be families who are just learning English. So, you're gonna have to find a way because I can't be in all places. I'm walking around taking pictures. You're gonna be fine. And
Right.
them just telling me, you're right, we were fine. I'm like, yes, just have that confidence because, and I said, they see that you're coming from a place of love. The families can sense that. So of course they're going to try and help you understand them. So it was fine. But just to see them,
Yes.
it was nice to see the confidence kind of, building up in them. And they were so
Yeah.
different being out there like playing tug of war. Like they were so funny because the kids were playing tug of war, and then some of mine were jumping on either side, just a competition between them, like who's gonna win, who's gonna win. It was just nice to see that side of them.
Yes, thank you for sharing that. So I don't know if I told you this community program that I created over at the College of Social Work. We can talk about that another day. But anyway, long story short, we had an event last week at an elementary school. So over 250 students, grades K through 5. We sort of interacted with them and taught them about some basically empowerment type deals, learning about their different forms of capital and things like that. But I bring that up because seeing my students, get out of their classroom and just be like in a different environment. Their faces were just lit up. They were like singing, making up chants and everything, being bad with the kids. I'm like, guys, come on. It was really a joy to see. And so I always, just enjoy that. So when you told me about your class, like that actually being a class that you all, infuse that regularly, I said, my, it would be great if like social work could be a part of that in some type of way, or sort of have some type of
Yes.
partnership with you and your class to be able to engage. I don't know. So I don't know, maybe that's an area for us to think about.
That is a good idea because it's so needed. I think we have to, like a lot of the families are so afraid to come to school, like for so many reasons. And
Hmm.
especially now where like we know schools have to be safe places. So the
Hmm.
doors are locked and they have to do
Yeah.
all these things. So it's not physically as welcoming as it used to be. So kind of
Right.
going out of our way to make that, it's only, and for us, it's the understanding that that relationship building as a teacher, that's what's going to help the families help you with their child and let you understand their child a little bit better. That'd be
Yes.
great to partner in something. There's so many possibilities. And then
Yeah.
with my teacher researcher, like, she's got ideas. I'm like, okay, I'm only one person, let's do what we can. And we always go small scale, but that would be wonderful.
Yes,
That would
absolutely.
help.
We should let's talk about that. But
Yes,
and
yes.
also just a thing that I'm gonna write down what you said is going beyond comfort and really trying to increase confidence. I think that's really key because yes, everybody as humans, we want to feel comfortable. We want to be comfortable. We want to get more comfortable. That's it's no escaping it. We're not gonna make that be the
Mhm.
elephant in the room. Yes, we love our comfort, you know, but it's not about that. It's
Right.
that's the only way to grow. Like growth, and
Yes.
I continue to learn this the hard way. It feels uncomfortable when I'm in my safe spot of like doing something that like I got this. I did this a million times. I got
Yep.
this. Okay, that's great. Good for you, Brandy. But like, are you growing in this moment?
Right. Right. And we shouldn't be afraid of that. And
Yeah.
that's it, like that whole thing of discomfort. We have to feel that to grow. And I think
Hmm.
that our students they're taught for so long that, that's you stay in the comfort, but it's like, no,
Yeah.
you have to move out of that. And then
Hmm.
like so there's 18 of them. Of course they all didn't, connect as much, but
Yeah.
I even so, and I told them, I was like, well, I know that some of you are more outgoing and it's just natural. That's going to happen to
Hmm.
you. But like
Yeah.
I'm reserved, so I understand if you kind of step back a little bit, but we're doing this 3 times. So the next time you're going to get better. So by the last time, you're going to just be fine doing all of these things and
Hmm.
knowing how to interact. And just like I said, we both said gaining that confidence because that
Yeah.
makes a big difference. And it's
Yeah.
not confidence in the way of like, I know how to do all this, but just I'm going to be okay. I'm going to throw myself out there and try and communicate with these families. And if they don't understand me, we'll figure it out. Just, I'm going to
Hmm.
do it. That's it. That's all I need, that attitude. I'm going to try and I'm going to find.
Absolutely. I love that. Thank you. Well, it has been such a joy connecting with you. Is there anything else you would like to say about this wonderful, moment that we're in of celebrating, Latina Hispanic Heritage Month, all of the words? Anything else you want to say?
Um, I think just one last thing that we tend to get grouped up, we Latinos, into one big clump that we're
Mhm.
all this. But like we kind of talked earlier, how we're Cuban, we're Colombian, we're Costa Rican, we're Puerto Rican, we're all these different things. So rather than think that we know who someone is, just
Yes.
respectfully ask.
Hmm.
Because it's better to respectfully ask and be told than to just assume that someone is Mexican. Because in this country, we think that if you're a Spanish speaker, you're Mexican. Well, we're not all Mexican, and we're not. And like I think I said earlier, all Latinos aren't Mexican. All Mexicans are Latinos. There's so many different ways. Just respectfully ask and try and find out what someone is, and curiously and respectfully. Not in we talked in class today about how not saying where are you from,
Hmm.
because the tone indicates you're not from here, as opposed to a genuine, so where are you from? I'd like to
Hmm.
know that. So, kind of doing that. And we're not all the same there. It's the Latino cultures with an S, because there's so many of us.
Hmm. Hmm. So even within groups, knowing that like every individual is different and you have to make space, create space, and be intentional about,
Right.
honoring the individuality of all people.
Yeah. And it takes time, but that's the whole that we've been talking about. That's the growth, the area of the
Yes.
possibilities and the areas for growth.
Yes. All right. Well, thank you so much. I'm so grateful for you. I really appreciate you. And we're gonna post this on our College of Social Work website. Also give you a copy for you to post wherever you may feel like you want to. And I look forward to continue conversations. And as I mentioned before, the pendulum definitely swings both ways. So if there's anything I can do to support you and your efforts, please just reach out to me and I'll be happy to do so.
Thank you so much. This was wonderful. And yeah, we do need to connect for the spring semester. I already have some things I'm thinking about that we can definitely do. I'm
Okay,
looking forward to it.
count me in. Count me in.
Okay.
Bye.
Okay. Bye bye.
Bye bye.